I just want to speak the name of Jesus.
Now we come to one of the greatest chapters in the Bible, the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son. And this is such a rich passage that we're going to spend quite a few meditations in it. The key to this chapter is in verse 1. Now tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees grumbled, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." So the whole of this chapter is actually addressed to the Pharisees in their grumbling. I want to look a little bit at that word grumbling. It comes from a Greek word, quite a delightful word, Goggozo. That's actually made up of two words. The word Goggozo means to grumble. You can hear it. Goggozo, Goggozo, Goggozo. That's the word for grumpy. One woman said to her friend, "Sometimes I wake up grumpy. Sometimes I let him lie in." But we need to be careful. If our life is characterized by grumpiness, by grumbling, by criticizing, we might end up spiritual dwarves. But if I add the word dia to Goggozo, it becomes much more serious. It's not just grumbling. The word dia means through. It means to grumble through. In other words, you try to spread your grumbling and you find ears willing to listen. And we end up with this picture. Look at that big mouth. Look at the delight he's taking. Look at that long accusing finger. And more serious, look at the size of the ear of the listener. Sometimes we can sin as much with our ears as with our tongues, being receptive to other people's grumblings and criticisms. Let me ask you a question. How serious do you think the sin of grumbling is compared, say, to adultery? Well, I don't exactly know the answer to that question, but I can tell you this. In Numbers chapter 14, the people of Israel were forbidden to go into the promised land and condemned to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. And it wasn't for the sin of adultery. And so the Pharisees are grumbling. What are they grumbling about? Well, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. What's the crime in that? Welcome is such a lovely word. I am so grateful that Jesus welcomes sinners because I don't know about you, but I need that. And you notice that sinners gather to him. He doesn't have to tell people to come to him. They gather to him like children, flock to Jesus. They're attracted to him. And I think it's because of his complete non-judgmentalism. Do you know that in all of the Gospels, Jesus never once called someone a sinner? He wasn't afraid of labels. He put lots of labels on the Pharisees, but he never called anybody a sinner. And they're grumbling particularly because he eats with them. Now, in the Middle East, hospitality was the highest virtue, to open your home and give someone a meal. But it indicated acceptance and equality. But the Pharisees were very selective in their hospitality, not Jesus. Here's a little challenge to you. Look through the Gospels and see how many times Jesus was involved in meals, in eating with people, in giving food to people, in giving parables about banquets. I haven't counted, but I suspect it's a lot. And so this chapter offers us two choices. We can grumble or we can accept. I wonder what you've given up for Lent. The general idea in Lent is that we give up something, but we also take on something better. So it might be an idea to add to your list, to give up grumbling and become more accepting.
Unending love, amazing grace.